Okay, so let's just kind of get into it. So
Let's
today I am super excited, which is like my entry line, to introduce Veronica Cisneros, a buddy I met all the way in California. We've never met in person,
No.
but she is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she helps high achieving women stay married. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop,
So
whoop.
I asked Veronica to join us. Thank you so much, Veronica, for joining us today. I am so excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be here. It's been like forever. And that's right. I'm like, no, of course I've met you in person. And then I'm
We
like
have,
trying to
it feels
think.
like we have.
I know, right? And I'm trying to like think of like, okay, well, when the hell did you meet her? What state and what city? And I'm
No,
like,
no.
oh shit, no, we haven't. Okay, well, hey.
Nope. Hey. So, but we will one day. That's on the
Duh.
agenda. So I wanted to invite you on because as entrepreneurs, as Latinas, right?
Yeah.
There's so many layers to this one.
Yeah, girl.
So as Latinas, traditional Latinas, I believe our cultures are pretty similar of like where you cater to your man and like he's the breadwinner and your role is to have babies and also work and also provide, but he's in charge and you just like sit in your place.
Yeah.
And I've encountered so many entrepreneurs, whether Latina or not, but I'll hit more on my experience where if your husband is not an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
it is really hard. And I always love watching the dynamic with your husband, Willie, that you share often.
Yeah.
And you guys do a lot of the work together that you do. And I want you to share your story too. But my question is always like leading people and helping them to navigate this. But before I even start asking you questions, tell me about your story and Willie's story, because I know that's kind of like where all of this started for you.
Yeah, no, hell yeah. Well, Willie and we started out, I mean, shit, I was 19 and he was 20 when he proposed.
Well, wait, hold on. Wait, you're skipping stuff. I love how you guys met. So you cannot skip.
Shit.
You cannot skip the how we met story. Come on.
Far back when I was 4. Okay, real. I'm gonna sum this up, but give you all the juicy details. Duh. All right, so I was actually dating somebody. I was dating a Marine who was on a MEU.
Okay, what is a MEU?
Okay, so a MEU is when Marines are on ship. They're on float. So that's another thing about on float. So he's on a ship and he's away. I think he was going towards Okinawa or whatever. And we were dating. But we weren't like actively dating. He was gone. I know. Okay, Veronica,
you guys are missing the facial on here. Okay,
right?
We're all kind of rationalization going on.
Right?
It's okay. We've forgiven the other Marine. Let's get to the Willie parts. Okay, we're not judging here, Veronica.
No judging. So I was working at a shoe store, and it was an open space. So like anybody passing by, we could see you, right? And so one of my friends is like, her name was Melanie. She's like, damn, Veronica, every single time guys always, come approach you. She's like, it's my turn. And I was like, all right, girl, let's do it. And so we're leaving the mall. And I was like, listen, I'll go ahead and drive your car. That way you have free range. She's like, all right, cool. So we're leaving the mall. And the minute we leave the mall, there's like this group of guys. And this one guy comes running. And I'm like, what the hell? Did you drop something? Like, what's going on? And he comes up to me and he's like, damn, I just have to let you know, you are so beautiful. And my friend is like, it's supposed to be about me. I'm like, girl, you're going to get your turn. Don't worry.
You're supposed to be the wing lady, not the lady.
And I was like, oh, thank you. I'm dating somebody, right? And so he's like, I just had to tell you. And all of his friends were like, because it was a group of Marines. And all of his friends were like, oh, whatever. We left, we get in our car and we're driving I was like, girl, I'm going to take you. We're going to cruise to the beach. We're going to meet all kinds of guys, right? All kinds of guys for you. So we're cruising we're on our way to the beach. And I noticed like somebody looking at me. And so I'm like looking to my left and I didn't know it was Willie, obviously, but me and Willie are kind of like glancing at each other and like, Melanie's like laughing. I'm laughing. I didn't know Willie was singing at the time. So Willie was singing out loud in the car, just singing. He thought I caught him singing. I didn't catch him singing. I caught him looking at me.
Wait, you need to clarify. Was Willie the one that stopped you to tell you how beautiful you are?
No, that was another guy.
Oh, other guy.
Yeah.
All right, so got it. That was the whole other part.
Yeah.
So we're in the car, you're driving, he's singing.
Driving.
He thinks that you're laughing at him singing.
I'm laughing at it. I didn't even know, girl. I'm just me and her just being girls, giddy, right? And so Willie and I just kept on exchanging glances. And then we finally get on on the freeway. And so is it the freeway on the highway, whatever the highway? I don't know the difference. And so I'm like totally educated. Anyway, anyway, and so we're like, it's two lanes, and we're kind of glancing, and we finally get to the red light. When we get to the red light, I have two cars in front of me. He has one car in front of him. And you know, he stops where I'm at. There's a big old gap, but he stops and he rolls down his window and he's like, you know, hi. I'm like, oh, hi. He's like, what's your name? And I told him, and he's like, well, because the light turned green, he's like, follow me. And so I'm like, okay, because that's totally smart to follow some random guy you met, right, on the freeway, highway, whatever the hell it is. And so I'm following him, and he stops at a gasoline station. He gets out of the car, and we just sort of talk, and we exchange numbers. And then my friend is like, Veronica. And I'm like, girl, I told you when we get to the beach. Pobrecita, she was so pissed at me. She was pissed. And yeah, we ended up going out on a date the next day. And then after that, we were always going places. He was always at my house. And yeah, like 4 months later after we met, he ended up proposing to me, which was like crazy.
That I didn't know. 4 months later?
4 months. And I was not like, I'm going to get married and have kids. I was like, that wasn't me. I seen what was my mom. I seen like the whole dynamics with my mom and dad. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. Like, not a chance in hell. And so for me, it was not like something I wanted.
Was Willie already in the military then?
Yeah, Willie was a Marine.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and Marines, my lady.
Girl,
or is it a California thing? I don't know.
Listen, a guy in uniform, my man in uniform. God damn. But yeah, it was just like, yeah, he proposed to me. And then a year after we met, we ended up getting married.
Wow.
I know, dude. And now we're in October this year, it'll be 24 years.
Wow.
Freaking crazy, dude.
And you have 3 beautiful girls.
I got 3 babies. Like,
Aww.
yeah, my gremlins. Yep.
Okay, so I know that we met through a whole other entrepreneur program because we're like forever students and we're both therapists.
Oh yeah.
The story you share with everybody when you're talking about what you do to help couples is your struggles in your relationship. So can you tell us a little bit about that bump?
Oh, hell yeah. The biggest bump we had was when Leah was born in August.
Is that your first?
Yeah, that's my first. So Leah was born in August 2022 or 2002. And shit, so Aaliyah was born in August. In about October, was it October? Yeah, because it was around our anniversary. October, we ended up being separated. And Willie asked me for a separation. And I was just like
2 months, you had a 2-month-old essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so what made him say like, okay, I need space?
Yeah. So Willie, it was a drill instructor at the time.
Okay.
And when you're a drill instructor, and there's a warning for us women, for us wives. After Willie graduated from drill instructor school, all of the women, like literally the day Willie graduated, all of us wives were asked to come in because they were going to brief us. And so it was like, all right, cool. This is so awesome. Like, oh my God, my husband's a drill instructor. You know, the guy with the Smokey the Bear hat that yells at everybody. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so like, we're at a brief and I'm like thinking I'm hot shit because we're at a brief, right? And the colonel or whatever he was a high ranking officer. And I say it like that and you'll see why I had like wanted to jack smack him. So he's up there on this, you know, sort of stage and he's like, look to your left, look to your right. And so I'm like, hey, you know, like we're here. We made it. And he's like 98 or 99% of you will not be here after the 3-year term because you're a drill instructor for 3 years. And literally like we went from like, hey, like, you know, all cute and all like nervous because we don't know each other to like, what the fuck? Like, what? He's like 98, 99% of you will not be here after the 3-year term. Being a drill instructor is 3 years. And it's like all of us, like were pissed. How dare you tell us that? Like, you don't know us. You don't know me and my man. You have no idea. Girl, listen. After that 3-year tour, two, myself and another group, Gunny Branch and his wife, Karen, was the only ones that survived. The only two.
But there has to be more, you know, that, like,
oh, fuck yeah,
love
dude.
to know like what the stats are and why it is. And
well, it's because they're robots. They end up becoming robots. As a drill instructor, you are robots. A recruit is not allowed to see you sleep, eat, anything, go to the bathroom. So you become
constantly
robots.
on.
Oh yeah. And then in addition to that, you have a wife that hasn't seen you in forever. And so when we see you, it's like, oh my God, I want to talk, blah, 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 blah. So it got to a point where Willie wouldn't come home, you know, and it was just like, okay, but you don't know any different because he wasn't home all the other times, you know, and it ends up being something you can't explain it to anybody. Like, it ends up being something that kind of takes over. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the only way it can happen is if somebody is co-signing it, right? Is approving it, is choosing to do it. And so Willie ended up becoming somebody that I did not know. And there was one time we were in an argument and he's like, do you understand? Trying to yell at me like a recruit. I'm sorry, but listen, I definitely understand. I 1,000% understand that your ass not going to fucking try to yell at me like that. Like, let's go. Listen, my dad was a gang member. Like, you think you're all badass? No. Right. And so he and I were just like, and I didn't know, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know he and I didn't have healthy coping strategies. I didn't know we weren't talking because he and I grew up with Hispanic cultures. You don't talk. You don't sit down and go over, you know,
feelings and what you want and conflict resolution and how to talk to each other healthier.
Bingo. For us, it was like, who's going to check who?
Yep. Who's going to win?
Bingo. Who's going to win? And that's going to destroy your marriage. And so, yeah, I just had Aaliyah and Willie was doing his own thing. And I remember, and I don't think I've ever shared this, but I want to share it now. There was one night, I had this gut feeling. And I was like, dude, I knew something was up. And this was the early signs before our separation. But of course, I ignored it. But I was pregnant from Aaliyah. And I couldn't freaking sleep, girl. I couldn't sleep. It was like 12, 1, 2. And I was like, I need to find where my husband's at. Because for whatever reason, I don't think he's at the barracks where the recruits are at. And so there my ass is pregnant, like literally pregnant. And I get in my little Toyota Celica, because that's totally family friendly. And I drive on base, in my pajamas, because that's the way we roll. And I remember looking for his car where the recruits stay at, and his car wasn't there. And then I circle the base. It's Marine Corps Recruit Depot on MCRD in San Diego. It's not really a crazy big base. And then I find his car, and I was like, and it was right across where the single Marines stay. And so I was like, all right, well, this doesn't make sense. So why not just think rationally and spend the night here? Like, duh, I'm just going to go to sleep in the back of it. And because that's like, hello, what rational Latinas do, right? I mean, that's just how we.
As she's waving her hair across her
That's
face.
just the way we do this. And I literally fell asleep, and it had bucket seats. It was a 2-seater in the back. So it had bucket seats. My pregnant ass, big ass belly, is with this bucket seat. So I'm all chueco, and I go to sleep. Well, I think it was like, because I found his car, and I think it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I hear his voice. Because that's how crazy us Latinas can get. Like a girl, we have senses like no other. And I hear his voice, and I was like, I pop up. And him and one of his drill instructor friends is all suited up. And so they get in the car, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because I'm literally in the back seat, small ass car, trying to maneuver. Like, what do I do? So I jump in the driver's seat because that's how we roll. And I turn on the car, and I literally quickly park or, drive the car behind the guy's car. So he couldn't back up out of the parking spot. And he's just like, what the fuck is this? Then Willie comes out and I was like, where were you? Like, where were you? And he's like, we'll talk about it at home. I was like, where were you? Where were you? And he's like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant? I was like, no, I'm not get that.
Thank you for the facts.
Like, duh. Where were you? Where were you? And he was like, I just remember crying because I knew like this asshole probably went out clubbing and here I am. I was not one that wanted to have kids, like never wanted to have kids. So here I am pregnant because you want to have kids. And Aaliyah was a surprise. And it was just like, I felt so betrayed. You would have thought that was like the first sign, but it wasn't. It was one of those things where it was like, okay, he's going to come home and we're going to figure this out. I'm making this way more than what it was. And so, let's say fast forward after I had Aaliyah, I noticed these changes, but I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to handle them. And so it was just like, okay, I'm just going to go with the flow because I've been here before, but I'm going to do things different than my mom did. And so it was just like, what is this? And it wasn't until Willie and he ended up filing for divorce.
Did he ever have a conversation with you about where he was, or you just dismissed it?
Him and the guys went out for drinks. And I'm working my ass off. Yeah, I'm working my ass off. I don't have any days off. We went for a drink and then we came back. And so it's like, okay, fine. I get it. Like, I mean, and because he was working nonstop. And we were like, we knew the type of schedule he would have, but we weren't given like what time he would come off. We weren't given any of that. So it's like, whenever he comes home, he comes home. Mm-hmm. And then they didn't have weekends off. Like, this is like you're with the recruits for 3 months. And then you have maybe a 2-week break until you pick up the next one. And then some of them were back to back. So, and you knew you had 2 weeks off because we went to a barbecue. And so it was like, oh, okay, this is 2 weeks off, but it wasn't really 2 weeks off. So it was just nuts. So yeah, Aaliyah was obviously born and Willie asked for divorce in October.
Okay, I have a dumb question.
Let's do it.
It's a Willie question, probably more so, but like, if he is so busy, why even like, what does he want to file for a divorce for?
Well,
like, he's not home.
Girl. So exactly. So Willie ended up starting a relationship with another girl.
What time?
Well, it was with one of the recruits' sisters.
Got it.
So yeah, it was with one of the recruit sisters. So as a drill instructor, you go through all of your recruits' mail. And so there's pictures that are sent to the recruits. And so, yeah, it ended up being that. And
okay, so Willie, we love you now, pero lo mato then.
No, girl, listen.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like open that wound. I had no idea.
No. Listen, girl, I've gone through this. Willie and I've had several conversations, and we had to, when we ended up kind of like that reunification process. No, girl, shit. How much time do you have? There's a lot of things. And I do share this stuff on my podcast. I do share a lot of this. That story I never shared though. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to give you something different. But yeah, like, I mean, there's
so he hands you the
there.
papers. You just had a baby. She's 2 months old. And you're like, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, guess what? You try to go ahead and hold on to your marriage. You try to hold on to save your marriage, because you can't have a daughter that doesn't have her biological father. You can't do that.
Do you think that's part of the Latina though too?
Oh, girl, 1,000%, 1,000%. You can't have somebody else raise your kid, And so, okay. And this is where the familiar part comes in. Like, my mom went through this, but he's not doing what my dad did. He's not doing that. There's no way. There was
justification.
Girl, I didn't know about that other girl until Willie and I got back together. So it was just a whole lot of Willie I must be a nuisance. He doesn't have time for me. He just wants to be with his Marine friends. I didn't know that there was somebody else.
And it's so interesting because, again, as women, and correct me if I'm wrong, as women, as a Latina women, it's like, it must be me. I must be doing something
1,000%.
wrong. I must be broken. I didn't do the things I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I didn't do enough of, and it's incredible. So why is it that our instinct is to blame ourselves?
You know, I think one of the biggest reasons is because we're not taught how to be truly empowered. We're not taught how to set boundaries. We're not taught what our true self-worth is. We're not taught that. I can't tell you how many times my mom would tell me, Mija, know your worth, know your worth. And it was like, okay, mom. But meanwhile, women were calling the house. My dad wouldn't come home. My mom would try to figure out how she was going to feed us. But Mija, know your worth. And it's like, okay.
So she would tell you, but she wasn't showing you how.
Yeah. How many of you have had a mom that's actually showed you how? Like, or a dad? Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so all of these red flags that I obviously they were very much there, but it was like, well, it's not that big of a deal. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And my ass, I didn't even realize. If you asked me back then, girl, how are you doing? I would be like, oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm good. Yeah, but your confidence seems low. Your confidence seems low. I would have been defensive. I would have been like, okay, no, not me. That may be you, but not me. I didn't know. I had no clue. I had no clue. And it wasn't, it wasn't until I ended up going back to school. I ended up having to get my own bank account because Willie took me off the bank account. Yeah, there's a story on that on my podcast. But like I had to get my own bank account. I was like, dude, what am I going to do? I have a baby now. I have to go back to school. I got to get a job. Like I have to go back to work. And I'm not a stranger.
What made you choose marriage and family therapy?
I've always wanted to be a therapist. I've always wanted to be ever since I was a kid. But I didn't know what the hell that meant because I had never gone to therapy. But it was like, oh, I want to be a therapist.
Well, hold on. You need to clarify that.
Yeah.
Never been.
No.
You always wanted to. So what made you want to if you didn't even know what it was?
Everybody would come to me to solve their problems. Like I was a problem solver. Everybody come to me and it's like, oh, I know how to fix problems and I know how to give really good advice. And you and I both know as a therapist, we are not giving good advice. We're not giving any advice. We're challenging you, right? We're doing all of that. But I didn't know that. So I was like, okay, well, duh, this is my calling. And so it was the next step. It was the next step. But yeah, I knew I had to go back to school. And it wasn't like I was going to my undergrad. It was me going to community college, so that I can get all my requisites done and get my AA and then get my bachelor's.
What's still out of therapy, right? There's different
definitely in psychology.
Specialties. I know. What made you choose marriage and family? Was it because of your experience with Willie? Was it because of your family dynamic growing up? What made you choose that specific delineation?
To be honest, I didn't even know there was like different ones. I didn't even know there was different ones. I didn't know there was like an LCSW. I knew there was like a psychologist, but I was like, I don't want to do testing. I'm good. I didn't know like LPCCs. I didn't know that there was, several different branches. I remember working with some guy and I was doing ABA therapy or ABA tutoring. And he was saying that he was going through this marriage and family therapy program. And he was telling me what school he went to. And I was like, oh yeah, then I'm just going to do that. I could do that. He's doing it.
So you just kind of like fell into it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I have to tell everybody, I've known Veronica for a while. I've listened to her podcast. I've listened to her lives. I've been in her group. You are phenomenally skilled. And listen, I know a lot of therapists and I'm always like, where did she go? Where did she train? Like Veronica just is so skilled. So this is definitely an important conversation to have, which leads me to, as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What do you do when your husband, right? Because it appears, at least, right? So you and Willie have been together 24 years now. Yeah. You have 3 beautiful daughters. Yeah. You look like one of their sisters, which is another story. You guys are like beautiful together, this beautiful family. He appears to be very supportive on what you show. We don't know the tail end, right? Yeah. So, but I'm not even going to pick on that. What does one do, or has there ever been a position where you and Willie weren't on the same page as it came to your business insofar as what you're doing or what you're investing in or what you're pouring money into it? There's so much tension because, and I'll speak of my husband, law enforcement, retired, and he was like, clock me in, clock me out. I'm
Yeah.
going up in my steps. That's it. Like, you don't spend extra, you don't do extra. And I'm like, but you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
And I am going to do this to meet people. And then I'm going to network to do this. And we think so differently.
Yeah.
What, as an entrepreneur, especially one who's starting off, who's probably not surrounded with other entrepreneurs like we are.
Yeah.
How can you kind of navigate that when the person around you who's supposed to love you endlessly is not on the same page and you still want to grow?
No, that's a great question. You literally, and I don't want to sound this way, but I'm going to sound this way. Listen, you got to know who you are. You got to know who you are outside of the relationship, outside of being a mom, outside of being a wife. Like, at the core, who are you? Who are you? And what do you want? Like, what do you truly want? Like, white picket fence, all of that shit. Okay. But like, ultimately, what do you want? Because I'm going to tell you what, there are going to be a whole hell of lot of road bumps, a whole shit ton. Listen, me and Willie, we're best friends. That shit took work and takes constant work, like constant work on both of our ends, not with us like slaving to the relationship, like literally investing in ourselves, 1,000% investing in ourselves. Because I'm gonna be honest, insecurities come up like no other. The minute my business made a certain amount, Willie was like, oh shit, well, and in a Latino household, right? Both of us are both Hispanic, both of us are Mexican. Like, he is used to being the primary breadwinner,
Yep,
right?
he's the top dog. He runs the house.
1,000%. And when you have, your wife that is kicking ass, and now like we're going to dinners and we're networking, and
I wonder too, in the military world, like essentially then you kind of like outrank him. And I wonder what that dynamic was like.
Well, it started getting that way where I want to answer all of your questions. So your first one, you got to know who you are. You got to know who you are. And a lot of women are going to listen to me and be like, but what about the relationship? The relationship's going to come because you know who you are. What ends up happening in relationships is, if you don't know who the hell you are, and I'm doing a series right now on high achieving women and the impacts it has on their relationships, right? If you don't know who you are, then you're going to constantly compromise for your husband. You're going to freaking hit these high goals, and you're going to minimize it. Well, I mean, yeah, the practice hit 1 million. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And a magazine wants me to be, they want to interview me, but I mean, it's not. What were we doing again with the kids? Are we doing this? You're going to minimize it. And then you're going to resent him because you minimize it and you can't celebrate your wins. And then that's going to get to a point where you are going to use that resentment, which leads to outranking him, which leads to that path towards divorce. Because there's so much resentment that has built up in the relationship, which now has led you to being in contempt, where you're positioning yourself higher than your partner. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've been guilty of this. I have been 1,000% guilty of it. And it was scary for me. It was 1,000% scary for me, because it got to a point where it was like, well, yeah, I'm not doing anything. I just made this much, and I'm coming home, and I remember comparing the things that I was doing with what Willie was doing. Like, you can clock out now. Like, you're good. You can clock out now. Like, as an entrepreneur, I can't clock out. I have not only, mouths to feed here, but like, I have employees, and it's a women-based practice. All of these women are the primary breadwinner. So listen, I got to make sure this business is running without any hiccups, and it's a well-oiled machine, because these women are relying on me to feed their family. So hell yeah, it gets to that very, very quickly. Very, very quickly.
I'm stuck because I know you need to go, but this conversation
You're good.
So good. Okay.
Let's do it.
So,
I canceled.
Oh, good. I'm so sorry. I know. I'm so sorry.
Here.
This is so good. Okay. So people, this is usually my super short episodes is not happening today. Okay. What do you do if your partner doesn't want, so you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
If your partner doesn't either, I'm going to find the right words, find your value or doesn't want to acknowledge your value because they feel threatened, right? With their
Yeah.
manliness, their
Yes.
machismo, right?
Yes.
Or they're unwilling to give you the space to do what you know you need to do. And it's either your business and what you know and you,
Yeah.
or your relationship.
Well, so the only reason why it would be that ultimatum is because you guys lack skills. That's
Right.
just me being very upfront. Listen, if you guys are listening to this podcast and you guys get to know me, there's no freaking band-aids here. I'm going to give you guys it straight
I'm the
up,
same way.
right? There's no band-aids. I'm going to give it to you very much straight up. We're getting to the point and that's it. And so if your relationship is there and you're at this ultimatum, like, shit, you either support me or I'm out, or my business means more, or you're just gonna have to figure it out. Yeah, your relationship needs skills. It 1,000% needs skills. And this is where I come in, right? To help you guys navigate through these uncharted waters. The first thing is to identify, well, shit, that's where we're at. We don't know how to have these conversations. And we don't know how to have these uncomfortable conversations without them turning into these massive warlike blowups, right? And don't get me wrong, I've been here too. Right. And I probably will be there again, only because that happens. And so one of the primary reasons that does exist is because there is an insecurity that has been exposed. 1,000% an insecurity that has been exposed on both parts. On her end, you're going to try to take this away from me.
You're right.
I'm already doing this shit scared. And there's a great amount of uncertainty in this. And I'm afraid you're going to try to take this away from me. And I already have other people that are trying to take it away from me. And I don't know how to navigate through these uncharted waters, but I know you're a direct threat. So that's when we position our partner as the enemy. For the husband's like, I'm losing my wife. And I'm speaking from my experience. You know, on my husband's end, Willie was like, I'm losing my wife. I'm competing against her work and I'm going to lose. I know I'm going to lose. And I'm watching the kids and I'm watching how she spends less time with the kids. And I'm watching that she's no longer really invested in the way the house looks. And she's no longer invested in us going out on dates. She could give two shits about us going on dates. She'll pick a work trip or maybe working over me. Is that 1,000% true? No. But is that the way he's processing it? Absolutely. So guess what? There's going to be more resistance on his end, just like there's more resistance on your end. That resistance, again, drives this disconnection over and over again. And it positions the marriage in a very unhealthy state where you guys both have positioned your partners as the enemy and you're both trying to force change. And you're trying to force change because this is uncharted territory. You guys are acting out of your emotions, and basing your next step out of fear, not rational. It's not rational at all. And so you have these couples, your husband stops showing interest. He stops asking how your day went. And the minute you start to share maybe any excitement about where it's going, he could give two shits only because it poses a threat. It's not really how it is. And so for Willie and I, that did happen. That 1,000% happened. Willie was like, and he told me, I'm tired of competing with I'm tired of competing with your business, and I know your business is going to beat me because you care more about your business than me. The minute I heard that, girl, I was on the defensive. Really, Willie? Remember those 7-month deployments? And I was totally ride or die and a single mom. And you went for 7 months. I was there for you. I literally had these companies. Now it's my turn. Suck it up, homeboy. So, and did I say these exact words? Oh, you bet your ass. I'm just being honest.
So Veronica, so on this one, I've worked, so your specialty, so yes, I have my practice, but this is like your deal. Like I work with couples, but this is your land. You're in California. I'm in Florida. My goal here is to support women however they need and to help them with their businesses. I defer all couples to you at this point online. They're all yours, baby. All yours. So I've worked with entrepreneurs that I'm coaching on their business, and I see so much growth and potential. And they're either having arguments with their spouse is not giving them the respect, or their business the respect to watch the kids without interruption. So now they seem less professional. Doesn't allow them to invest back into the business money that the business has made, because all the money should be funneled into the home, not the business. So then it holds them back. Then you also have them in a position where the husbands feel so threatened that they talk about gaslighting, that they start saying, this is you not being successful. You're being narcissistic. You're always on Instagram. This is not about your business. You want to show off. So what do you do when you have these dynamics that, again, are super unhealthy, but where this entrepreneur, this Latina entrepreneur feels cornered into, I can't win. And what's worse with the gaslighting, they start to believe it. Yeah.
A couple things. This is where I want you to go. So I wrote them down just because I want to make sure I hit on them. And this is very, very common. And I'm sure you and I know I've gone through this.
Absolutely.
Right? We're all going to go through this. I want you to do one thing. The first step is I want you to recognize the relationship is in a very huge transition. It's in a transition that it's never been in before. It hasn't rehearsed. It has no clue what the next steps are, right? And so because it's now in this transition, it doesn't know how to adjust to it. It's literally a grieving period for both of you.
You're right.
You're no longer that person you once were, Susie Homemaker. Your husband is no longer, is also, he didn't choose this, but your husband is also like that life that he thought he would have and envisioned is also now in his eyes crumbling. Right? And there's a lot of things. No, I don't want you to invest money. No, I don't want you to, show our life and, be on Instagram. I want just let us have a damn moment. That's not videotaped, right? So I want you to first, identify, what is this triggering for you? First thing, what is this triggering for you? Right? What insecurities is coming up for you? What are the insecurities? I'm not going to make it. My husband's going to leave me. My kids are going to hate me, because there is mom guilt, right? Like all of these things, whatever those are, I want you to literally write them down. What are the insecurities that are coming up for you? Because it starts with you. It starts with you. Let's go ahead and figure out what those insecurities are, right? Your next step, I want you to have a conversation with your husband. If you don't know how to have the conversation, hit me up. We'll work together. But I want you, when you're cool as a cucumber and you've identified what your insecurities are and you're going to work on them, I want you to go ahead and go up to your husband when you guys are cool. And I want you to ask him, what has this been like? Your guard must be down when you have this conversation.
I think that's a huge piece. It has to be down.
It has to be down. There's no judgment. There's no criticism. The minute you find that guard coming up, girl, get the hell out of there. Excuse me, I need to take a quick break. Go do freaking your extra run and run wherever the hell you think you could drive. Run that far and then come back, right? But ask him, and I want you to allow him to go ahead and open up with honesty. And this is the conversation Willie and I had to have, and ask him, what has this transition been like for you? What is your ultimate dream here? Like, what's your ultimate goal? And why is it important to you? And then ask him another question. And yes, write all of these questions down. If you're not writing them down, write them down.
Rewind.
Right? The next question I would ask is, what is your greatest fear? And I'm going to tell you right now, holy shit, having that conversation with Willie, before that conversation, there was more questions. But before that conversation, I always thought, you're just threatened. Like, you're just threatened. Like, why can't you just freaking support me? I supported you. You went Afghanistan. You went to Iraq. You went on a mule. You were gone. The majority of some of our kids' lives, like, you missed it. And he was gone for 7-month deployments. I didn't freaking complain. I was here. I was ready to go. Whatever you needed. Why can't you do the same for me? And that's where I stayed stuck. I stayed stuck in that cycle. Why can't you do the same for me? But the minute I stopped personalizing it, the minute I was able to recognize, wait a minute, he's going through this shit too. It just looks different. And it's not a personal attack for me. And what do I know about Willie 100%? I know Willie 100% loves me without a shadow of a doubt. I know that man loves me. And I know that my husband is happy. But now I'm starting to see a different side to him. And that's the fear. And what I found from that conversation was Willie looked at me and he's like, babe, when you're not here, I yearn for you.
Aw.
And right away, you would think that that would be my response, but
I have my therapist hat on though.
Yeah. My response was, here we go. Now, what do you want to be on the tit? Like, what do you want to be? Like, here, I got to freaking now nurture you through this whole, like, that's in my head. And I was like, Veronica, shut up. Shut up, Veronica. Don't say no. Shut up, shut up, Veronica.
So your reaction was like, hold on, I need you. And you're worried that you need me.
Yes.
Like you need to be babied while I'm trying to build an empire.
That's exactly what I thought. Like, here we go. Let's define codependency for a minute. Right? Like, it was like, here we go. Like, you want to, now I gotta walk you through this process. Now I got to make sure you're okay first before I'm okay. Right. And I realized that's not what he was saying, but that's where I went. So I'm asking these questions. What ultimately happened towards the end was his fear was that I would leave him. That I would realize I no longer needed him. That I would realize one of his greatest fears, which was an insecurity of his, that I didn't need him. That I wouldn't want to be with him. And those insecurities came up by the lack of support. Those insecurities came up whenever I would talk about money. And that's what it was triggering. The minute I was able to go ahead, and obviously there's more work to this, but the minute I was able to make that shift, it was like, oh, holy shit, this makes sense. Like, now I get it. Now I understand it. And I stopped personalizing what he was saying. And I stopped positioning him as the enemy. Don't get me wrong. Again, this took work. But I started to see him as my best friend. And I started showing up as his best friend.
Wow. That is powerful, Veronica. That is so powerful.
Yeah. It was hard as hell. And it had to happen. It had to happen for me. It had to, and hell yes, I'm greedy in this. It had to happen for me. And in allowing it to happen for me, now I can see my husband as my greatest cheerleader. Because just like I felt safe in it and I could be 1,000% vulnerable,
he felt safe.
Same thing. And we just started having more conversations, and we've had those come to Jesus conversations, and yeah, they're hard. And again, Willie and I are going to be a work in progress for the rest of our lives. Like, for the rest of our lives. Are we going to get it right every single time? Absolutely not. Do we get it right all of the time? Not a chance in hell, right? And we know that. We absolutely know that. And because we know that, we are able to thrive. We are able to thrive in the midst of chaos, and our kids see us in our not so great points and our great points, and, working through it, trying to figure this out.
Well, Veronica, I could keep talking to you for days. But I know you need to go, and I know that we are way over what I promised that I would keep you. Promise to have you on again. One of the things, and we talked about this before we kind of like press record, was I love how you share your story with you and Willie, not to be nosy, but to like,
girl, I love it.
Like, wow, everybody's not alone. Wow, there's humanity in this too, which is something that's hard for therapists because we're taught the opposite. Don't have Instagram, don't have Facebook, don't have all these things. That's a whole other conversation I can get into. But what I love is that you and Willie, even in this part of your journey of what you're doing to help women and couples, and these high achieving women is that you bring him into the mix when you do these things, because a lot of these questions I'm like, well, what did Willie think? And what did Willie feel? And what was his reaction? So can you please tell everybody listening how you can help them in their relationship as they're trying to navigate, whether they're Latinas or not, and whether they're entrepreneurs or not, how you can help them as high achieving women help their marriage going through everything we've been talking about?
Absolutely. So the first thing is you got to be willing. I'm going to say how I'm going to throw it back on your asses. You got to be willing. You got to be willing to do the work, because the only way I'm going to be able to help you is if you're willing. So if you are willing and you're like, you know what, it's time. I've been ignoring those red flags and I'm ready to do the work. If you're ready to do the work on your own, I got you. If you're ready to do the work with your husband or your man, I got you. How can I do that? Well, I have a 12-week program. I got a 12-week program for those women that are looking to go ahead and enhance their marriage, truly connect, and reignite that flame. If you guys are ready for that, I got a 12-week couples program that we can go ahead and get you guys signed up for. If you're like, well, I'm ready, but my man ain't ready. All right, let's do the work. If that's where you're at, cool. I got a 5-week program for you where we will go ahead and walk you through that program to get you to a state that definitely changes your relationship and how you show up. So you're not ignoring those red signs and you're able to apply practical skills to change it. And so you end up being truly empowered and unapologetic. Absolutely.
And hopefully by the time you even go through that program, then at that point you'll have grown and changed enough where then who knows, maybe your partner, or you'll learn how to communicate with your partner and bring them along for the next program.
That's exactly how it's been working. Yep. It's crazy.
That's beautiful. Please tell everybody how they can find you the best way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have a freebie for all of you guys. It is called The 5 Things That Are Killing Your Marriage. You can access that by going to veronicacisneros.org/guide. Again, that's veronicacisneros.org/guide. You can find me on Instagram and all social media. My tag name is Hey Veronica Cisneros. And then my website, veronicacisneros.org.
Okay. And we'll make sure to link all of that on the show notes for today. Veronica, thank you. If I can't begin to tell you, when you're in a room with somebody else who has the same energy and love and passion and so relatable, it is always so nice to talk to you. And like I said, I could truly talk to you for the next 2 days, a million questions. So we'll have you on again. But thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so grateful for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm excited with what you're doing. You're absolutely killing it. And ladies, make sure you have a notepad, pen, and paper whenever she's on her podcast, because this girl speaks truth.
Oh, thank you so much, Veronica.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.